There
Not
may
even
be trouble ahead, but while there's moonlight and music and love and romance,
live.
let's
We're
face.
love. We're
Oh,
live. You haven't.
In Portugal, there's a YouTube show full of fun facts you need to know. Carl rings the bell and the members show to the GMP morning show. Featured guests will come and they will blow your mind. The audience will do so in kind. The little vanity mixed with some insanity on the morning show with GMP. Hey, GuMPers.
hola, bon dia, alegria. How are you this morning? Tudo bem? Como estás? The Munsons here. It's the Munsons. Whatever, yabba dabba do time. The bell has been rung, and who doesn't like a quick dong first thing in the morning? Hello, Mrs. M. How are you this morning?
I'm trying not to breathe into the headphones because,
Mm.
like, everyone that's listening today. Oh my god, I'm so sorry, but the two of us are slightly virusy today. We should be masked up. There
Quite
you
like
go. But anyway, Carl keeps telling me that he can hear my nose whistle, and I can't even hear it. But apparently, it's picking up in the monitor. So
well,
I'm trying not to breathe.
please breathe. I think that should be recommended this morning. It's been quite the amazing. Saturday, Sunday, only really a couple of days away, right? Oh no, we went away on Thursday, didn't
We
we?
went away on
My
Thursday. Yeah.
goodness, it feels like 2 weeks ago. I'm
Mhm.
not complaining. I'm really not
And
complaining.
2 weeks ago, we'd gone away again, hadn't we?
We have. It's been quite the schedule and quite
Yeah.
amazing. What a fantastic time we had in the Algarve. Take
Mm.
Mrs. M to the Algarve though, and she comes back with these sorts of things. We have come to your planet. Take us to your leader. What is this? Rise and shine.
Well, I
Is
picked
there
that.
intelligent life on this planet? Or should you not go to the gift shop after you've been drinking Guinness? What happened? Tell us what happened.
I the kids had a little bit of pocket money to spend, and we were looking for a Chinese
Yes,
shop, and
yes.
then we saw Alley-up or Ale-bop,
Hello. Yes,
according to how you want to pronounce it. And
yeah,
the kids are like, "Mom, we haven't been to the cow shop in ages." And so we
yes.
walked in there. I upped their allowance immediately because obviously they're gonna want to spend a bit more.
Yep.
And there was this lovely lady who was on holiday in the Algarve with her two kids, and she was getting
Uh-huh.
massaged with one of those things behind her neck. And
That's
she
what it
said,
is.
"Yeah, love, you look like you could do with a relax." And so,
She was Norwegian, was she?
no, that was meant to be sort of from my neck of the woods,
Oh,
but
it's
like
messed my
how
hairs
they
up.
actually talk.
Right.
So anyway, yeah, I went and yes, I'd had a little bit of booze, and I was sat there with my neck being massaged, and the kids were running around.
Must have one of these, you thought. And
Yes.
clearly there are things that come out of cows, and that's part of that's a good example of it, along with those other cheap items that you
But
bought.
you know what? They had quite a few different designs. So, you know, I
Yes.
could have these kind of wobbly, flashy boobies that go round and round and round with lots of different designs on them. But I chose the Rise and Shine one because it had moon and stars, and I thought it was kind of relevant to what I do. So there you go.
Oh, of course. What, lie around all day massaging yourself?
Yeah,
Yeah,
definitely. And for people that are listening in and haven't got the visuals, that's going to be quite disturbing. You know, me
it is.
describing this
It is. It is.
booby thing going round and round.
Talking of lying around massaging yourself all day, we met this bloke on the beach, didn't we? What a
Mm,
legend! Oh, Frank, it was
yes.
so good to see you. One of the many high points of going away to the Algarve. It was a long overdue trip. Great to see you, Frank. Thank you so much for your very kind hospitality and just the opportunity to hang out with you and see you. Lovely to see you, mate. And yeah,
Yeah, it's wonderful.
long overdue trip, right, to the Algarve. You know, for one reason or other, we haven't been there for over 2 years, and it was great to go there and drive through the Alentejo. Shall I play that little clip of the Alentejo?
Yeah, do.
Sunshine, because that's very beautiful, and we have videos from Doug and from Andy detailing what those guys have been up to in the last few days as well. And tell us what you've been up to over the weekend, if you will. Do share. Why have I still got this picture? Removes poison oak and
What?
ivy oils. You needed that about 3 months ago, didn't you?
8 months ago. Yeah, that would have been
Yeah.
really good.
Was that? Did
Yeah.
you? Was that 8 months ago when you had the poison ivy?
Your mum was over. It
Oh my
was.
goodness, time flies, doesn't it? Okay.
Yeah.
All right, so let me just play the video of the journey down through the Alentejo, where the broadband slows down. That's why the Algarve is slower. That's why the Wi-Fi is slow in the Algarve, because it has to go through the Alentejo, which you will see here. And what happened, I think, is we've been truly blessed, according to the legend of Saint Martin, San Martino, because he slashed his cape in half with his sword. There's a kind of bit of Freudian sexual metaphor going on there as well, I think. But he slashed it in half, gave it to a poor unfortunate beggar by the roadside. And God was pleased with San Martino and blessed Portugal, at least, with 3 days of sunshine, like a San Martino summer in November. And we had one of those. Check it out. Yeah, and that, folks, is what November looks like in Portugal, right?
Yeah, I mean, that was pretty amazing. I am itching all over since you've shown that picture of poison oak remedy. I just had to take my headphones off. I just suddenly felt really, really itchy.
Yeah,
now, one of the things that you didn't realise is in that lovely shot of the Alentejo as we were whizzing past it on our way down to the Algarve, was that there was a fire in the background. And that's why I zoomed in on the mirror, trying to pick up the smoke in the background. But there was definitely a fire going on.
There's all sorts. We've had everything, haven't we, over this last weekend? Life in Portugal. The weather, that San Martino summer, the late summer, what some might call an Indian summer, is behind us now. I think if we look ahead to the weather for this week on the GuMPer website on goodmorningportugal.com, you'll see. I won't go into detail here because there's no need to. But if you look, just to look at the icons on the screen there, you're not seeing much sunshine. That's this week is looking very cloudy and rainy at the moment. Rain in Lisbon, Porto might get it's just raining there as well, and in Coimbra and in Faro. So another rainy week, filling up those reservoirs, and great weather for ducks. Talking of which, fantastic.
But you know what? Those temperatures aren't that shabby. I mean, they're just like a summer. They're like a summer day in the UK, aren't they?
Absolutely.
It's still warm if you leave your house. You can still walk around in a thin jumper.
Oh yeah, don't get me wrong. I'm not complaining. It's still, even though it sounds like it, constant stream of complaints. No, I'm just saying it's going to just telling you what's happening this week, and very mild, absolutely very mild. This coming week. Let's have a look at what Andy's been up to as well this weekend. Then we do.
I'm being called off. Excuse me, just 1 second.
Oh, okay, all right. See you in a minute. Okay, there goes Mrs. M for the moment. Anyway, Andy, so that everybody knows, he was living the dream last week. He reported to us that he was taking his car in for an inspection. I mean, does it get any more exciting than that? But he did celebrate because I think the car sailed through with flying colours, and he treated himself to a nice little snack. Oh no, I think that's part of the cycle ride. Him looking like one of the Backstreet Boys, or even an 80s boy band there, out with his pal cycling in the Bairrada region. But I think this is the cake he celebrated with after his car successfully passed its inspection. And I show this because I believe it was from the cake shop at the Aliança Wine Museum. You must go there in Sangalhos. Look, great cakes and coffee, and of course an incredible wine well, a museum. It's a museum, but they reference all the great wines of the Alianza winemaking empire. But it's a collection. It's like an Indiana Jones collection of stuff that they've turned into what they call the Alianza Underground Museum, because it's underground. It's a cellar, and they've used the iconography of the London Underground system. And I heartily recommend that to you. But let's see where he got to yesterday on his bicycle, because I think there's a bit of commentary here. And I always worry when he's doing commentary from his bicycle, you've grown a child.
This
All
little
right.
darling was calling me from upstairs,
Oh, bless him.
doing
Okay,
his mama woo.
so joining us this morning then. Let's have a look at
Yeah.
Andy's cycle ride.
Olá, bom dia. Tudo bem? Muito bom. Sim. Mirror, the lagoon at Mirror. Done some new sort of ponds here. They've constructed. And there's young Fernando. We're off to Mirror Beach, which is just the other side, over there. That's one of those swings that they do around Portugal. Here we are, we'll wait for this little break in the reeds. And there we are. Lovely jubbly. Oops, chubellas.
Isn't that nice? Isn't
That's
that
so lovely. When we
commentary?
used to go to Mira, I don't remember seeing that. Was that on the other side
I
of
don't think I
town?
did. And that's again, there are a few sort of characteristic Portuguese things in there. Swinging, they like swinging, and the swings in Portugal. Boardwalks. How many kilometers of
Oh,
boardwalks must
I
there
love
be?
the boardwalks over
Yeah,
here.
and
We went through a
hypnotism.
really nice boardwalk, didn't we? From
Oh,
where we were in the Algarve just a few days ago.
Tell me about it.
From
Yes, from the car park over to the where I took
yeah,
the picture of the flag. Yeah,
yeah.
absolutely. I mean, incredible infrastructure all over the place and well
Mm.
hidden, as you'll have seen there. We've been to Mira once or twice, Mira. If you want to check that out on the above the Silver Coast. I'm not including that in the Silver Coast. I think that's between the silver and green coast of Portugal. Which, what happens if you mix silver with green? You get a kind of shiny 80s eyeshadow color, don't you?
That sounds great. I think
MIR,
I have some of that somewhere.
I think you probably do, left over from the nights out in southeast London. Okay, so thank you, Andy, so much for that as well. Let's see how everyone's doing this morning. It does feel like a long time since I've been in this seat, I've got to say.
Yeah.
Sorry to hear this news from you, Coach Turner. Sorry to start with a downer, you say as well, but my friend Dave didn't recover from his heart attack. I'll miss him greatly, but not as much as his family will. It makes my tip of the day very short, and that tip of the day is Carpe Diem. And I'm so sorry, Coach Turner, that you've lost your pal, Dave. I mean, we were all rooting for his recovery, and I'm sure you were there, encouraging him and suggesting that you might work with him on the track or whatever when he recovered, but sadly didn't make it. So we're very sorry to hear that. And it leaves you with those two words that seem very important at these times: Carpe Diem. Seize that day, everybody. I'm so sorry, Coach Turner. And James, Feliz Segundo Todos, como foi os vossos fins de semana? How did your weekend go? Very good. Oh, I forgot. Well, I have been remembering. Oh, I need to speak to James in Portuguese soon. But I haven't really done anything about it. So we'll see how that goes. But I've got backup this morning. So we don't forget, because it's going to be a busy show this morning. We've got Simone joining us, who is running a workshop called Expatriation as Personal Growth. She's doing that in Caldas de Rainha quite soon. She'll tell us more about that at 9:30. But let's make sure we include things at this stage, so that things don't get missed, such as the inspiration from the Buddha this morning. If we could see the miracle of a single flower clearly, our whole life would change.
Isn't that beautiful?
That is true, beautiful. And we've done so much in these last 3 days, and it's been full of those single moments, isn't it? Of absolute stunning. Well, given what's happened with Coach Turner there, to be alive in the moment and see a single flower among the incredible abundance of everything that we've seen, that we do see, all of us, every day, would be quite something, wouldn't it? So maybe hold on to that idea there, and take that with you as a gift, in your party bag from this morning's Good Morning Portugal show. And from Friday, this got Missy. If you don't do things sequentially, Mrs. M, if you squeeze the toothpaste in the middle of the tube when it comes to the comments, you miss out on things like this, which I did on Friday. Little League Baseball is a very good thing because it keeps the parents off the streets. That'll be the same with
Now that is so true.
Yeah,
My
football
sister's
mum.
a soccer mum.
Yeah.
My sister's a football mum, and her and her husband are kept very busy with that. With their two young footballers.
Some of them soccer mums are best kept off the streets, aren't they? Just shouting at the ref instead on Saturdays and Sundays and some evenings in the week as well.
Yeah.
Good weather for ducks this morning. Bon dia, GuMPer. What's your duck rating this morning, T-Duck? Thank you very much for this. Let's stay with the profundity, shall we? Simple is clever. Complicated just means you haven't been clever enough to reduce it to its essence.
I really like that.
That's great, isn't it? From Frill Dorado.
Yeah.
Not Dorada, Dorados. The guilt-breamed writer, guilt-headed writer of journalism and editorship and leadership, their consultant, Phil Dorado. Thank you very much. Phil Dorado, that sounds like a great name, doesn't it? Almost a cowboy. And Portuguese saying then, maybe I'll try this one, James. A pressa e inimiga de perfeição. Haste is the enemy of perfection. Yeah, but excellence spoils the good. I've taken that a bit. I think I've taken that one a bit personally.
I tell you what, if you'd have read the translation before you read that out, you'd have discounted that one.
I would. Haste makes waste.
That's the one that I'd be reading out with some glee.
Yes, there's a balance to be struck with these things. And Hugo Nuno, Portugal holds the record for the shortest and longest reigning monarchs. Henrique of Portugal was the king of Portugal for more than 73 years, while Louis Philippe was king for only 20 minutes. What?
Wasn't even king for one day.
How do you have a 20-minute reign? I wonder. What happened to him? Did he not like it? All these people bowing and scraping. I can't be doing with this. I quit. But I imagine it was more bloody than that.
I suspect it was, yeah.
I suspect it was as well for poor Louis Philippe there. Dad jokes to come back to later on. And a weather report. Do you want to do this weather report from Belfast? Lovely weather lady.
Okay, I cannot do one of your wonderful accents, but anyway. Bon dia, Carl and GuMPers from a wet Belfast, still very mild. 14 degrees yesterday, slightly colder today at 11 degrees.
Yes.
We'll watch show later on Catch Up. Busy morning in Belfast. Thanks,
yes.
Deagle.
Thank you very much. James coming, of course, at 9. He likes to tune his ear, which, of course, is the avenue to the heart, as Voltaire said. And I have a lovely bit of video from Philomena. She was going to see Andre Rieu. Is that how it's said? Is that even his name? I think I've got that right. Andre Rieu. She was with 20,000 people, I think, in that Altus Arena in Lisbon. And the finale, I think it was the finale, but it was Andre Rieu, who's not averse to doing a little bit of popular music with his orchestra. They covered Elvis's I can't help but falling in love with you. And there's 20,000 people singing that. Did you like that bit of Elvis there?
Yeah, that was good.
Yeah, thanks.
That's good.
OLP, sorry to hear about the loss of your dear friend. Our condolences to you and Dave's family. For what it's worth, Ian, if you could pass that on from us, the GuMPers here, he won't, and his family, of course, probably won't have known about us, but we send our love for what it's worth to you and all of the family and your community there who are suffering that loss. Stephen, bon dia to you, my friend. OLP in the wee small hours, as John puts it, John Heimbach. Bon dia, GuMPers. It's 12:30. So I mustn't stay long, but I just wanted to check in. You have checked in. Did you pack your bag yourself? OLP, well done. And again, by Andy, sorry to hear about your mate Ian. It's a very sad situation. And Louisa, thank you for that as well. There, Anna Olsen. Now, Anna, you are featured on the front page of the GuMPer gallery because we saw you, and you promised to send us some photographs, which you did, of the Western Algarve where you were headed. Here you are with the rest of the GuMPers, who it was my delight to meet on Friday at the event that was put on by Serenity. And they very kindly asked me to host and moderate a panel. This is after the show. Well, not really a show, but after the event. Anna, Clive, you can see there, and Paul and Susan as well. This was earlier on when I was taking care of the situation, as it were, and hosting the panel there with the very handsome Jeremy Klingers to my left, who's a mortgage consultant from Mortgage Direct, and next to him, Yuri Luge. Can you imagine that being called Mr. Light?
That's really cool, isn't it?
Yeah, Yuri Luge, and you can see the elbow of the doctor there, Dr. Michael Averbook. That was a lot of fun, and thank you very much also to Clive for bringing me his vinyl. He's been making music since the 80s, and he's a soul legend. Some of his vinyl records are exchanging hands for a lot of money, 3-figure. Get your old vinyl out the attic, everybody. It's worth something these days. But these are repressings, and they're exchanging hands on eBay and specialist sites for a lot of money. And this is the music he's making since the 80s, and it was so lovely to see him. And very kind of you, Clive, as well, to gift me with a couple of your releases that are coming out in the next few months. So great to see all you GuMPers at that event. That was superb, and lovely food at Tribulum as well. This weekend also we saw Bob and Viv, who came and stayed at our place while we were away.
Yeah, that's an amazing photo.
It is an
isn't
amazing
it?
photo. Yeah,
Bob took yesterday.
We were
on an iPhone. I mean, it's incredible, isn't it?
It is really good, and it was. We were not rock pooling, but river pooling. The great waters had flooded part of Celio de Porto, leaving little pools with tiny fish and creatures in, and that's a shot that Bob took. Great to see you both. They've got some exciting ideas coming up, haven't they? With YouTube. We can't give too much away at this stage, but I would love to, believe me. Your photo, look at they love the Doors in Portugal. Riders on the Storm. Look at that. That's probably a very well photographed or very often photographed door in the
I imagine so, yeah.
Western Algarve. And if we share onto the screen now the GuMPer gallery, can't see where I put it now. Oh yeah, GuMPer gallery, here it is. Bringing that onto the screen for you now. More of Anna's photographs.
Isn't that lovely? Yeah.
Well, the one on the right, she was off to the Western Algarve. She said, I'll take some pictures for you. And she did. Look at that. Isn't that a beauty on the right there? And that's later on, I think, that same day, Western Algarve. Thank you, Anna, for these. And James, who'll be with us soon, took that one of Sarah. So don't forget some lovely pictures over there on the GuMPer gallery at goodmorningportugal.com. Very pleased with the traffic to goodmorningportugal.com. There's so much there, and I've done my best to arrange it a bit better. Thanks, T-Duck, for your tips on that. There's another nice picture from the Western Algarve, and that door. So check it out, GuMPer Gallery, under the GuMPerverse, the ever-expanding GuMPerverse, which Carl Sagan didn't know about. As one of the areas of astrology he didn't go into was the GuMPerverse. I imagine scientists will talk about that in hundreds of years to come, possibly, the GuMPerverse. Okay. We are fast approaching 9 o'clock. What are your big takeaways, Mrs. M, from visiting the Algarve?
Oh my goodness, so many. First of all, maybe that we can't go gallivanting around every 2 weeks with 3 kids and sorting out what happens at home. I'm quite exhausted now, and we're all kind of recovering. Being away with poorly children. Literally, me and the kids hung out at home, at our new pad, and it was really nice. We had a lovely place in the Algarve, but we were really just all tucked up in a big gold bed watching TV and recovering and eating soup and things like that. But what we did see in moving around was just really stunning. The light was different. The vegetation was different, like the kind of trees that we had down there were really, really different. There were mosquitoes, which we were kind of grumpy about. We're covered in bites, me and Minnie in particular. They had stripy zebra mosquitoes, which we don't really see up here. So we're very pleased to get back to the Silver Coast where we're not getting bitten. You rarely see a mosquito here at this time of year. But it was just great. And I think one of the things that kids noticed was that everybody spoke English where we were, in the shop, in the reception, in the cafe. The English spoken was really, really fluent, and they hadn't really come across that too much in the last 5 years, and they were kind of surprised by it. So I think Portuguese people that live down there have a much stronger understanding of English, but it really speaks of the amount of expats living there. It's much denser.
I could see, yes. And you're not talking about the population, although I did see the Daily Mail quite a lot. I didn't. It was an international newspaper. It was a hard. I dare say, if I lived in an area where I could buy an English newspaper, I would from time to time.
You probably would, yeah.
Yeah, but I
I
don't
mean,
see.
it made me realise just you know, how the Silver Coast might be in 10 years or 20 years,
Yeah, that's a
you know,
thought.
because like we had this really long discussion about what progress is, and is that progress or is it not progress? And we had a really kind of long and involved conversation about, you know, how you can tread lightly, because wherever you go, you're always exerting your preferences at some level, even if you are a light-hearted person that doesn't want to impact the environment. You just can't help but do it.
Yes.
And so it really felt like, you know, we were in England, even though obviously we
Yeah.
were somewhere where it was warm and sunny, and you know, it was very, very different. I like the feel of it. I think
Yes.
it might be a bit too intense for me to live there, but I did think, you know, it could be quite good to maybe spend, you know, a month every year there or something like that. I think
And
we
we
could have a lot
always
of fun there.
Oh, without a doubt. Yeah, there's so many wonderful things to enjoy in the Algarve, and that's what
One thing that I was really, really not quite expecting was just how expensive it was. I've kept receipts of everything
yeah,
because I actually think this is kind of interesting because, you know, if people are moving around, they're coming over, they're looking for their right place to live, and this, that, and the other. The just the bills en route. I mean, obviously, service stations cost quite a bit anyway, but significantly more. And then, my goodness, the cost of the shopping everywhere I went, and in restaurants and stuff down south, it was so much more expensive than we pay. And funnily enough, like 2 weeks beforehand, we'd been in Fundão and Castelo Branco, and we were commenting on how much cheaper it was.
yeah.
So, you know, we're really getting a feel for the price difference according to the area you're living in.
It's the
So it's
opportunities to spend as well, though, isn't it? There are a lot of opportunities to spend money
yeah,
because it's
yeah,
a
yeah.
tourism area. But it's not just a tourism area. This is what is the big thing I need to remember. We went to Corteira, we
I
went
mean,
to
we drove through areas that were densely
lots of
populated, but there must be some really, really quiet and sleepy
there
and
were.
traditional places too.
Yeah, I drove through those as well, and that's what you have to remember is in the father's house of Algarve, there are many mansions, and there are
Mm,
lots of obvious and very attractive touristic places, and there are many quiet places. And I think, to
yeah,
be fair, again, we only went to a tiny proportion,
yeah.
a tiny section of them.
We
It was
just zoomed
intense.
through.
Yeah, and
I mean,
it felt like we went to a lot of towns, but that we still only scratched the surface
yeah,
of the broad brush that is the Algarve, and the broad, beautiful
yeah.
brush that is the Algarve.
I mean, it was lovely. I loved the light there. It was just really, really quite
Yeah.
spectacular. It really reminded me of the Mediterranean. I mean, I spent quite a bit of time on the Med at the south of France in my, I think I was 19, living there for a summer, which is really amazing.
Mm,
Very, very similar light.
yeah.
Really lovely feeling. Yeah, it took me right back.
Yeah, yeah, and
But
we really felt like we were on holiday for sure, didn't we? That's the vibe.
yes, yeah, that I mean, I didn't really feel like we were on holiday when we went to Fundão, but we actually did feel like we were on holiday going down south. But
Yeah.
something else that really came to me is, at the moment, I'm putting together the first episodes. I've done most of my interviews for The Secrets of Migration, you know, where I've been interviewing people about their whole journey. And I'm editing the first episode at the moment. And what I realized is people's reasons for moving over, whilst they're all very, very personal, I imagine a lot of people who've chosen to live in the Algarve have chosen that for very similar reasons. You know, there were lots and lots of retirees down there, and you know, lots of people who were like pretty much living on golf courses. So it's been interesting, like talking to people about their reasons for moving and the psychology of it, and how you come to terms with your reasons for moving.
Mm,
But it was just very interesting. Also, you know, like speaking to the people that we'd met in Fundão and Castelo Branco 2 weeks ago, their reasons for choosing their area as well were all very similar. So it's
similar
really
to
given me a
similar to
great
each
sort of
other.
snapshot. Yeah, like we met lots of people in Castelo Branco who were in the Fundão area who'd moved there because they really wanted to live off grid. They really
Yes.
wanted to live in a way where they could feel quite libertarian, quite free, quite untouched and unbothered.
Yeah.
And a lot of the people that I spoke to where we were staying, and people that I was observing, they were really wanting to live their kind of life in a hot and warm place, and they were wanting to be looked after. So you've got some people going to a place where they're not being looked after at all. I mean, a lot of these places that we zipped around in the Fundão area, it would be very difficult to get an ambulance on there in many respects. You know, some of these are they've got lots of rocky outcrops and things like that, or they're down a little track. You know, there's a lot of people who are living off the beaten track, and yet there are people where we were who were living in a place where they had access to everything 24/7.
Yes.
So
such is the diversity of this.
There is a very, very strong diversity, is what I'm noticing.
Yeah.
It's
Wherever
fascinating.
you go, this could be the name of your series, couldn't it? Wherever you go.
There you are. Yeah, definitely. People are. There you are.
Or even there you are.
But it's fascinating. I mean, like, you know, we've said for a few months that we'd like to go touring and maybe visit a place every 3 weeks. And
doesn't feel like that this morning, does it?
No, but I think maybe we could do one trip a month, and I think we should start planning it. We should start saying, where are we going to go in January, February, March, and actually draw up a timetable. And I think we should go and meet some GuMPers, meet great businesses, rate attractions and things like that. I'd love to do that. I think that'd be great fun.
That, didn't we, over the last couple of visits? So we'd love to spend more time and go to more places and figure out how to do that in a way that isn't entirely exhausting. But it was great. The tour bus was fantastic as well. Thank you, Kate.
Yes, thank you very much, Kate. I mean, we need to think about getting a tour bus. We also need to I need to change my own diary in terms of how I'm working with my clients. So I think I'd need to make some adaptations so that we can have these like 5-day trips, I think.
Yes. Okay. Looking forward to that. So looking forward to meeting more people on the road. We need to come to James. Let's say a few more hellos before we do that. Bon dia alegria todos from Anna, of course, from Marcus. Bon dia alegria. Jim White's in as well. Jean too. Ottimo segunda-feira para todos. Sarashosh at Westwood, New Jersey. Jess is in too, as is Brian. Good morning to you all. And not your average globetrotter. Rafael, bon dia, GuMPer. Francis in South Africa as well. Felicia Samana Noble. That's nice, isn't it? And Pete,
isn't that nice? Mildly moist.
And who doesn't like to be? Just the priorities, just like the priority seat on a London tube or bus stop.
Do you know what? I just had this awful remembrance of commuting to London, and just how damp it is. You know, like, even if you're not sitting, I mean, I used to not want to sit on my commute from Kent to London, but just standing, like, the air is moist and everyone smells of damp dog.
Yeah, but when you could smoke on the bus, it's different.
Yeah, but like I'm kind of smelling it right now. It smells like damp dog on buses and trains at this time of year.
That's
like
such a downer.
Bad breath. No,
stop it.
Last night's alcohol.
No, we can't go to James on that note. Going back to your rear view mirror of you just looked like a moody end to a video. I'm sure there was fire in the annotation. Everybody and their mother was burning olive branches over the weekend. So there you go. And of course, traditional at Magusto time to have that bonfire, drink the Jerapigo, to have some chestnuts, and maybe to have a bonfire and burn off some of that scrub from the trees and the orchards.
We did see a bonfire as we whizzed past on the way back, didn't we?
It was damp enough, I think, for a lot of people to be able to do that. He's waited long enough, this man.
He has.
Bring him on.
I've got to.
Swing. Where is he? There he is.
There he is. I just wanted to say hello and goodbye. I've got to deal with another recovering child. It's nice to see you, James.
You too, Louisa.
All right. See you later, guys. Bye, GuMPer.
Ciao, ciao.
One of these for you as well, then. There she goes. Oh, that feels good. We doesn't like the clap first thing in the morning. James, how are you? Tudo bem? Bom fim de semana? Muito bem?
Which one do I choose? Tudo bem? E tu?
Muito bem, obrigado, Alga. Força Portugal! And at this point, my friend, I'm struggling. I'm on the edge of my Portuguese. I'm in a slightly stressful situation, not knowing quite what to do. So I am going now to the Good Morning Portugal Learn Portuguese page, where it's probably, I won't have time to watch a video. That's Philomena reading out the legend of San Martino, as she did last week. And I can't take Mia Esmerich's course right now. But what I can do is pick a face from the new linguistic sensation. Speak Portuguese with your face. It's facial Portuguese, everybody, and the many faces of Marcus here. Which one shall I choose to come back at you with here? Yeah, I think it's going to have to be Chuva face, where it all started. And nothing endears you more to new Portuguese acquaintances than a knowing look about the weather. So for you, James, I've got one of these. What have you got for me?
Well, the one I'm wearing, for me, the most common Portuguese face is one of smiling and laughter. So it's perfect.
That's the one. That's the one, isn't it? And with us, not at us, mainly. Okay. Bom dia todos from Antonio F, who will help us tune our Portuguese ears. I'll never forget that. I think that's a lovely, lovely contribution you've brought to this whole endeavor of us learning the languages, tuning the ear. And Ian,
yes,
with all
Antonio.
Thanks for all your kind thoughts. That's what this community is all about. Absolutely. The ups and the downs. Absolutely. We're here for you, Ian, and let us know. I don't know how. It's often the way in these situations, isn't it? But we are moved to say, don't know how, but if we can help you, let us know. As Owen is adding to the condolences here, my comfort for your loss, sending my comfort for your loss from Owen there. And 3 peas in a pod here. Simon, good morning to you. Good morning, everyone. And Gina, bon dia from this Gina in Amsterdam. 1 more week with daughter in Amsterdam and thinking of getting residency there, then maybe Portugal for the future. God only knows. It's an adventure. And that's where you come in, James, right? With insights on this adventure, where sometimes people resort to that Beach Boys classic. God only knows.
God only knows. Yeah.
What a tune, eh? He wrote that for his brother, I believe, not for a partner, but for his brother, Brian Wilson, or one of the other Wilson brothers there. So what you been thinking? What are your thoughts from the Redwoods, as we used to say back in the day? Do you remember those in the old days?
What? Yeah, back in the day, a few weeks ago. Yeah, I was thinking in anticipating today's show and the slight, more subtle shift to applying some of these concepts more specifically to immigrating. And I was looking at expectation. I know we've talked about attachment in the past, and I got to looking at expectation because when I start looking at the question that has been raised more recently of why do people decide to leave, I realize that expectation is a huge factor in that decision-making process. That a lot depends on what you're expecting, and expectation is just another form of attachment. It's a form, rather than wanting things to be other than they are right now, it's wanting things to be a certain way in the future, which we have no real control over. Because, as I say over and over, we have no control over anything but ourselves, our thoughts, our words, and our actions. So anything that's anticipating or expecting things to be a certain way, the only thing we have control over is what we expect of ourselves and our own thoughts and words and actions. So much of this process based in the future is dependent on other people. It's dependent on the process. It's dependent on the bureaucracy. It's dependent on the airlines. It's dependent on the weather. So many things that are out of our control. And if we're not aware of that, there's this intense desire to control those things that won't go away. And in that attachment is suffering. There's a lot of moaning and groaning and so if we can be aware of that, this is an expectation that I have no control over. I can influence some of it by my own actions, but some of it I just have to let go of. and then remember to breathe and remember that we don't have control over it, we can then begin to let go of some of the suffering that comes with that expectation. And as that's related to people leaving, I think they come with an expectation that this is going to be the answer to all my problems, or this is going to be, the perfect place to be in the world, or, whatever our expectation may be of that. And then you come and you may have that for the first few weeks, infatuation, vacation. But then life life is life. And I'm not saying that like life is doldrums, but life has certain requirements that sometimes can be overlooked for a short period of time on a vacation.
Yes.
And that's where if the expectation is I'm going to go there and it's going to feel like a vacation forever, then we're going to be disappointed in that. And in that disappointment, that unfulfilled expectation, comes disappointment, frustration, and the other things that come with the suffering of that expectation. So I'm really liking the topic, not the topic, but the guests that we've got with immigration as personal work, personal growth work, because it is. It's what we've been talking about every week, is the things we get to look at in ourselves and how we're coping with a move, a substantial move to a new place. So in the looking at an expectation, I because I do this, I broke it down. I said, well, how's that different than anticipation? Because anticipation is also about the future. It's also about something like an expectation, but it's not as strong. It's not that it is necessarily going to be a way. It's kind of hoping it will be a certain way. That's an anticipation as I'm defining it. And therefore there's less suffering in anticipation, because it's like, oh, I'm hoping it will be this, I'm hoping it will be that. And if it's not, that's, well, okay, it didn't turn out the way I hoped it would, as opposed, it's not the way it's supposed to be. So it's a little softer. And ultimately, at the softest end and the least suffering end of it is, in my view, it's possibility. It's what's possible. I think you called it being open to the experiment. It's like, let's see. And then there's no expectation. There may be some anticipation. It might be like this, it might be like that, but I don't know. Let's see. So in that possibility and hope comes to me, an authentic willingness to be vulnerable and to practice accepting what shows up. So there may be a lot of dancing, a lot of changing in the movements, but there's no suffering in it. Each step is, I don't know, it becomes a fun process rather than one of disappointment, frustration, and suffering.
Which
so
you would have to
just
prepare yourself for, right? You'd have to attune yourself to that, though, I suspect, from what I'm gathering from what you're saying.
Yeah, it's all about practice. You don't just wake up one morning, all of a sudden you can accept everything that happens with great grace and and expertise. No, it's practice.
Yes.
I had a client ask me yesterday, as a matter of fact. He said, so is that mindfulness? Because I was talking about breath and gratitude, and I said, well, those are pieces of mindfulness, and it was the first time I was ever called to kind of define what is mindfulness, and it boiled down to bringing my attention to myself. So bringing my awareness to me, to what I'm thinking, to what my desires are, to what I'm attached to, and that mindful approach, when we practice it again and again, which is turning inward. Something's not right. What's going on with me? Ooh, they're really upsetting me. Okay, so what is it about me that's being, driving the energy behind that? When we can do that, then we can begin to let go and understand that I'm at cause for all of my experience. Whether I'm frustrated or joyful or whatever I am, that's up to me. But if I don't know that, I haven't practiced mindfulness, bringing it to me, then it looks like circumstances are ruining my life or making my life wonderful. It's like the things outside of me are doing that. So that
Yes.
takes a ton of practice.
It does. It's a process, isn't it? For sure, based on realization. And I must say, it is easy. Well, actually, I don't know if it is easy, but it's certainly easier to get it as a concept than to be putting it into practice. And this is I think this is mantra stuff for us, isn't it? Wherever you go, there you are. I think that's firmly held as an article of faith for the GuMPers now, isn't it? This is our everyday speak, isn't it? Yogi Berra is supposed to have said that. It's certainly a Buddhistic and spiritual concept, isn't it? Wherever you go, there you are. And then I
Yes, and
realized, when I was judging and when I was going into my, when you're away, you're a little bit vulnerable as well, aren't you? And things sometimes aren't working out well. And I had to remind myself that there's a consistent element in these challenges I'm facing right now, and that's me and my attitude about this. And it's a refinement. I was going to say you go deeper and deeper, whichever way you look at it. It's like refining oil higher and higher, or going deeper and deeper, or the layers of an onion. It is a process. It's not just a sudden realization, is it? Sorry, I interrupted you there.
Well, it's an ongoing practice for sure. I was just going to say, as Gene said to Thunderduck, where else are you going to be? Right. Yeah. That one of the things I like about some of these mantras or some of these ideas that seem to come a lot from Eastern thinking is they're very logical. It is what it is, can sound trite, but it's a fact. Like, what else can it be? It is that. So now, do I accept that it is that and not suffer? Or do I rail against it and suffer in the process of trying to make it not be what it is? So you are where you are is very literal. What time is it? Well, it's now, right? Now and now and now and now and now. There really is no past. There is no future. Those are concepts, ideas, and memories. But the only thing that's real is now.
Oh my goodness, which brings us full circle to get Coach Turner's God Squad tip of the day. Carpe diem.
Absolutely.
And again, you're right. These things have become cliches. They sound trite, but they are cliches for a reason, aren't they? Because human beings cling to them with some little bit of light or hope. And we're reminded, aren't we, of all the things we're talking about this morning.
Yes. Well, in the concept of easy and simple, people put those together and often say they're the same thing. But just something is simple. You are where you are. That's very simple. Love is very simple.
Yes.
But in the simplicity doesn't mean that it's easy at all. Remembering to be loving and to practice a loving attitude can be very difficult. To remember and to understand that the past is a memory and the future is a concept, that can be very difficult. That's what takes the practice. But the concept is simple. And I found, at least for my experience, almost all what I call the universal truths are very simple.
Yes.
But some of them are the most difficult things you'll ever attempt to practice in your life. So simple and easy are not the same any more than complex and difficult are.
Well said, sir. Excellent. And that's why he's here. And that's why he's paid the big bucks, of course. He's the Frasier of migration, which I know he's not entirely happy with, but he is listening.
I am listening.
And Frank prompted to say, I love this, Frank, meaningful migration. There's a little phrase we haven't used yet, but that's what we're talking about every Monday, as we attempt to brighten up your Monday at the same time as well. This might be a clue to it, of course. You will never migrate until your state of mind has fully migrated. I think that's state of mind rather than state of mind. Understandably, cannot detach yourself from your background, but if you're still going on about Trump and Biden, you better give yourself a head shake. You should be talking local politics, local sport, drink, and food, and give the burgers a miss. I think he's aiming at a certain demographic here, is he not? Eat churrasco, misto, sardinha, bacalhau, bochechas de vaca y porco. So there you go, a meaningful migration stamp of approval from Frank there.
And for me, the migration isn't necessarily getting over the things that you like from where you've been. It's just not expecting to have that all the time, expecting that it might be difficult to find it. And the bigger part, I really get Frank's meaning, is learning to integrate into the culture that you come into, which means experiencing the food, experiencing the language, involving yourself with the culture, the community, the people of the country where you are, and not trying to be, whatever your former nationality was in this new place.
Yes.
I think we're all going to, want, I've heard many times, or not many times, I've seen several times, people from the United States craving Mexican food, or at least Mexican food as we're familiar with it in the United States, because it's not available and it's delicious and we like it and we want it. So that's okay. It's okay to like that and want that and seek it out, but to expect it to be there and to always have that and only that, then you're not integrating, you're not fully migrating, which is part of that mental state, I think, that Frank was referring to.
Yes, yeah, absolutely. I suspect he'll let us know. Joao F is here. Good morning, everybody. Thank you all for keeping this show alive, risking to repeat myself multiple times. Don't worry about that. I still think it's a wonderful way of starting the day. Yeah, thank you, everybody, for your support, however it comes.
Concordo.
Whether it's
Obrigado,
time,
Joao.
treasure. Feel free to support the show financially, because we've got to make sure that Mrs. M can keep up with these gadgets that she buys when we're on tour as well. But if you go to coffee.com /GMP, you can support the show there. I think in one of the ways that Joao F is talking about here. And thank you to everybody. I'd like to take this moment to thank everybody who does that. And many of you are here this morning, so thank you so much. Why would you move to the Algarve if you didn't like sardines? But seriously, the burgers in Portugal are not for me. Well, that's a can of worms. I don't want to sort of really be talking about burgers and worms in the same sentence, but that's interesting, Darren. And I think you're a bit of a foodie, aren't you? You still haven't told us what you do apart from enjoy your birthday quite vigorously by the sound of it. Bondi, I've recovered from my birthday weekend. I hope you had a great time. I've got quite a few comments, as you would expect from this. And we didn't even add to the screen the latest CNN article. This doesn't help, does it, with expectations, of course, James, because this is continuing to happen, isn't it? The American media and other media channels, of course, from all around the world, bigging up Portugal, and quite understandably, quite rightly. But that does set certain sorts of expectations, the kind of which I think you are saying might lead people to some disappointment, possibly, right?
Yeah, I don't think a travel brochure or a single article on a place is sufficient for making a decision to make a life change.
Yes.
It's the infatuation vacation. It's like, oh, if that's what I'm looking for, if I'm looking for 2 weeks of the best I can find, then read the article and go look for that. But to then decide you're going to move somewhere for the rest of your life and not run into some disappointments from the travel brochure, then you're going to suffer a lot.
Travel writing is a certain kind of thing, isn't it? Portuglish and James, they are shouting.
Hi, guys.
Here. And a little bit of feedback from our earlier conversation. Você fala bem? From Frank, who's a bit nifty himself with the lingo. Conk and Hanny, good morning to you both. Bon dia, Carla, James, hello.
Connie.
Great to have you here. Luis was right about the mosquitoes there. Yeah, they've eaten him already. He didn't even get to the end of his sentence before he was set on by mosquitoes there. Oh, no, hold on. The mozzers. I always think of Morrissey when I see mozzers eating me alive here. That's not a pleasant thought, being eaten alive by Morrissey. Well, it depends on your taste, of course, and his. The mozzers are eating me alive here on the Algarve. Thank you for that. Don't send pictures of that. We've got a video. Strangely enough, we got a Spanish travel piece from Douglas this morning. We'll spin that in at some point as well. What is this? A person can make it the way they want, but it takes the motivation to follow through. Who doesn't like to follow through first thing in the morning? James is so deep. That's a good review, isn't it? I need coffee first. Take it all in. Take care, Ian. Take care. Who said be yourself, everyone else is taken? I don't think that was Yogi Berra, but I wouldn't be surprised to hear that it was.
I do like that one, yes.
Yeah. Just wanted to say I want to explore the Algarve more. I want, just in case any travel In case any publications are watching and they want to fund Mrs. M's trip, I want to see all those places that we didn't get to see, and there's lots of it. I mean, I just don't think we could do it justice in a few weekends even. It's obviously a vast and interesting place that works for so many people, the Algarve. I think she's feeling a little bit bad about how she might have talked about the Algarve. We often do. Randy, which sauna would you recommend for the Christmas bash? What? And mozzies still get me. I'm covered in bites, even my ears, says Doug. That's conjuring up a pretty awkward picture this morning. Covered
Whole new
everywhere.
meaning to your ears itching like somebody's talking about you. No, it's just the mosquitoes.
Just mosquitoes. It is what it is. Was originally an engineering term. You can't tell which way the train went by looking at the track. Oh my goodness, that's profound, isn't it? Those engineers. And Mrs. M continuing here. That maybe didn't come across in my comments earlier. I also forgot to say that we had such a warm welcome from the Algarvians. People in shops, bars, cafes were super friendly. And yeah, be ready for change, says Darren. I think he's not talking about his birthday though. He's talking about moving country for sure. Yeah, and why would you move to the Algarve if you didn't like sardines or the Daily Mail? A
Although wouldn't that
catapult.
apply to all of Portugal?
That's so
Portugal
true.
is a sardine place.
Yes, indeed. A cataplana needs to be a good one. Otherwise, it's a bone fest. And we don't want that. Now, cataplana, I was talking to Doug late last night. In fact, I was sending him my latest memes. It's Pastel de Nata week for the punnery and the funnery, everybody. Hence, Nata King Cole and Frank Sinatra. Do you like that, James?
Oh, no.
They get worse. There's Nata
Kind of like
Hari.
dad jokes, yes.
What about Nata Hari? King Nata of the Round Table, drawing his sword, drawing Excalibur from the pastel. Shall I stop there? But he said,
Please. My forehead's getting sore.
Catapana Stevens. We've got Catapana, we've got Peri Peri to come. Don't worry, everybody. We'll be covering all those angles. Oh, and have you heard Mariah Carey yet? That is she's the clarion call for Christmas festivities. Fortunately, not too much, not even in the supermarkets at the moment. But you might be interested to know that she is just having her pre-Christmas checkover. And here she is having the pre-Christmas MRI scan. MRI Carey.
You could name the machine that, couldn't you? The MRI Carey.
Isn't that fantastic? All she wants for Christmas.
That's good. Yes.
That is good, isn't it? Oh, controversy about the Silver Coast. Hold on a minute. I've got to take your banner out of the way here. Look, you see, talking to a savvy cat Anna the other day, she said Silver Coast is just a tourist thing. It's what foreigners. It doesn't exist in Portuguese, apparently. Well, it does now, but I don't think it was originally a Portuguese thing. And Andy has got it as going from Peniche, just about right up to Aveiro. So sorry, mate. Okay, fair enough. The Silver Coast does touch the Costa Verde above Aveiro there. My goodness, that's good. That's a nice little map, isn't it? And incoming from Bill this morning. What are you saying, Bill? Yesterday's trip from Salgueiro de Lomba to Nazaré. The weather was quite moody. Okay, so hoping to see some big wave action possibly there. Lovely. Some Nazaré pictures. Oh, that's nice. Very nice. That should go in the GuMPer gallery. So before we have our guest join us, James, was there anything you wanted to say about attachments and adjusting oneself? It's all very well observing the theory, but what happens when somebody realizes they're full of expectations that have been dashed? What do they do then?
Well, even before that is noticing that you are. So this is why the 3-point mantra that I use again and again: notice, choose, act. It starts with the noticing. First, you have to notice that the energy is stirring. I always talk about the energy because it's almost always a feeling inside of me somewhere that when I look at it, I say, what's that about? Then I begin to understand it better. So noticing that it's even happening can be work. For me, it's always because I'm having some sort of a sensation that feels uncomfortable or disagreeable or maybe, far greater than the circumstances seem to demand. Something is going on, and to notice that is the first thing. After that, then you can take actions. You can make a choice to then act take a deep breath, look at what you're grateful for, examine what the source of the upset is and try to resolve it. Those are the things that happen once you become aware that something's going on. But so many of us don't. So many of us blame the external circumstances for what we're experiencing. And there's reason for that, because that we react to that out there. So it feels like that is doing it to us. So it's understandable, but it's not until we realize that my reaction is up to me. And that's evidence everywhere. You see people who experience horrible, extreme situations who manage it quite well, ultimately, because they choose not to let that define them or become who they are. So you find people who are incredibly forgiving and graceful around things that you would expect them to just be railing against the world about. And at the same time, you see people who are railing against the world because, somebody stepped in front of them and they had to stop walking, So it's all based on how we react to what's going on. But it feels like what's out there is doing it to us.
Indeed. And a great moment, I think, to bring on our guest this morning. We have a Simone Torres Costa, everyone. Let's give her a nice round of applause. Exactly what you deserve for joining us on this Monday morning. A nice round of applause there, Simone. Good morning to you. Muito prazer.
Good morning. It's such a pleasure to be here. I think you have created the perfect setting for our conversation, James. Well done.
He's your warm-up man every Monday, talking about and mindful migration for sure. And your upcoming workshop, let's just put it on the screen for a moment, Simone, before you tell us all about it. It is turning expatriation into personal growth, a workshop coming up on December the 2nd, and it'll be just the morning of, is that a Saturday morning, €25 at the Sana Silver Coast Hotel, with a lovely agenda there, which I hope you'll be able to talk us through this morning. What a lovely idea. Before you do tell us about it, Simone, can you tell us about where you are in Portugal and how you got to be here, and a little bit of your backstory, if you don't mind?
Okay, sure. Thank you. So I am not far from you. I live in this lovely village of Alfeizerão, on the way to São Martinho. So that's a lovely area. This workshop is a consequence of my crazy life moving abroad, I can say it. The workshop could be called, turning life into personal growth. But for me, it was the aspect of transitions and constant adaptation to different countries and so on became such a evident and relevant for my life, or for my personal growth. So I think I like to clarify what about life that is making you grow. In my life specifically, it has been all the intercultural adaptation and the transitions alone and with my family, where everyone in the family had their views on the transition. So my life has been just full of this topic. So I cannot talk anything more than that. So I'm happy to find you guys. So there's a place here to discuss all that.
What a lovely frame you're putting on this and your life experience. And I think you did use the word crazy, moving around. Where have you been?
Well, I can say I left Brazil, where I was born when I was 17, and then I moved to the US, and then back to Brazil, and then to Sweden, and then to Poland, and then back to Brazil, and then Italy, and then back to Brazil, and then Sweden, and finally I'm here in Portugal.
Is that all? My goodness, that's quite a life, isn't it?
Quite alive. But I have to explain, I was thinking about this before our conversation. These two words, expatriation and migration, they overlap in many different ways, but maybe people watching us, some of them, they call themselves expatriates, but it's a bit different, as you know. Should I explain a bit the difference?
Please do, because we know this upsets people as well.
Yeah.
Yes, and I tend to hold them as the same thing. Like the definition is identical to just the label. So I'd love to hear whatever distinctions you may have come up with.
Yeah. So I can say that this is my second migration. That is because I just choose to move to a country out of my own decision and so on. When you are expatriate, I mean, formally speaking, you are being sponsored by a company. So a company that you work for sends you to places, and that is different because mainly you stay in those countries for a limited amount of time. So beforehand that you're going to be there for 2-3 years max, because then you have to choose to be local or to continue your expatriation career, which is to move on to the next country. As you said, James, before about expectations, when you know you're not going to be in that country for more than a couple of years, I mean, your whole approach to where you are is different. So this is basically the difference. And I think the expatriates, they suffer a little bit from the chronic transition. So you're not really settling in fully. You're not assimilating the culture fully, because you know this is going to be just for some time. So you make friends, you keep yourself to the expat communities, and just survive. And this is what I did for many years. And then it's fun as it is, a bit different. But I think that both expatriates and migrants go through a lot of common personal process to the experience of adapting to a new culture and so on. So this has been so chronic in my life. As I told you, I almost went crazy. So not to get crazy and not to spend millions on therapy, I went and studied psychology myself. So let me see if I can sort out myself. I don't really have time for therapy. So I became a psychologist. That is my second degree, out of this deep need of understanding what was happening, because as you said, James, everybody says it's supposed to be such a glamorous experience to move to different countries, and there I was, feeling so bad sometimes and feeling so frustrated with my own life, because I was also like following my ex-husband's career. So that it just I could not see this bright side of it for many periods. So I thought, let's go deep. And so this is
love that distinction, and I think you're absolutely right. Technically, etymologically, culturally, the real meaning of expatriate and shortened to expat is the person who is being moved, and I mean, of course, they are responsible for their move. They're agreeing to go along, but it makes it very different, doesn't it? If there's seems to be some sort of external force like work, or a husband or wife, a partner who's moving for work, and you are being drawn along in the process rather than being completely sovereign in that process. So a fantastic distinction there. And I'm sure the debate will carry on about whether people should call them expats or not, because people do use the word and they don't mean it in that way. And it's not, for me, it's not the end of the world. What's important is to have the conversation about it. But there's a massive and different dynamic in choosing wholeheartedly to go to a new place to live and knowing that you've got an end in sight. And you could argue that some expats do get a bad name because they know they're leaving, so they don't put roots down, they don't mix, and they don't really invest in the new place. But that's not the case for a lot of people who are calling them expats, who expect to be here for the rest of their lives. So your workshop that's coming up, who is that aimed at? Who would that be ideal for, of these kinds of people?
This is a very good question again. When I first posted the information about the workshop, the first reaction I had, a very honest comment on the post, was like this: what is personal growth? So here we go.
Life.
Yeah, so it was a bit of a sarcastic argument. What do you mean? Like, so this is probably a workshop only for women, these deep Zen people trying to, whatever. So that was such an honest, genuine question that I thought, yes, this is something to talk about. So I took my time and answered him. So the workshop is everyone that knows what personal growth is. I could say it like that. And it just means, as James was saying, I have the word outside of me and I have the word inside of me.
Yeah.
If it is expatriation, migration or whatever it is, we have a clear sense that we keep growing, even though our height doesn't keep growing. But there's something inside of us that urges to change and to become better, and so on and so on. Which is you can call that a spiritual journey. You can call that soul searching. I don't really care about how people name it, because I can have a whole workshop for people that are not into personal growth thing, and it still would make sense, because I hope to be talking to anyone, any grown up that knows we still have some time left in our lives. So why not get better? Why not get more genuine, authentic? And most of the time, we don't. I think, just to be honest, as a psychologist, I think we encounter people that are on a honeymoon to their new country, but we also encounter those that have passed that honeymoon phase, where, as James was saying before, life goes on and life has its force to make us grow. And as he was also saying, let's notice that, and let's make sure that we are really choosing the path we want to go, and then let's act on it. So I'm using James 3 mantra here, because it does make sense. So the workshop is for anyone ready to reflect. The starting point is expatriation, is intercultural adaptation, but that's just the starting point. So in the workshop, I deal, in the first part of the workshop, I deal a lot with the identity concept, which, we know who we are, and some people don't know who they are. But I'm completely in love with this concept of identity. Who am I, and who do I become? If I move so often, am I going to change? So there are lots of concepts around the idea of identity. I can just mention one very interesting concept called third culture kids.
Go on.
Yeah. So third culture being, I'm not the person from my original country, and I'm not the person from the culture that I'm currently living. So there must be a third culture. And I mean, I can go on for hours. I will not take your show on this, but we could.
Well, you can come back, or we'll do a separate program about this. This is fascinating stuff, and I think it could be really helpful. I know it could be helpful to people, but I need to rewind you back, because I don't know if you felt a little bit of a spike of something, James. But this idea that personal growth is for women, what's that about?
I think that the perception is fairly accurate, and it's not to, actually, I meant to bring this up with you earlier. Last year, we actually had a special event for the Movember movement, which is a lot about men's awareness about all kinds of things around health. And we focused on mental health, but I think there is a tendency, a gender difference. I don't know whether it's trained. I think it's mostly trained. I don't think it's mostly genetic, for men to not be taught to value what's going on internally. That our function is to have value, which is in what we can produce. So it's typically around work. And women are generally, and again, these are gross generalizations, but it helps in the description, they're generally, whether it's genetic or trained, more tied into their social life, having relationships with people. So in that, there's more discussion about what's going on internally. There's a bigger vocabulary generally available to women, and they are more, even in medical things, if something's wrong with my body, I'm going to go find out what that is. Or a man's going to say, I'll get over it and just move on, right? So these are some of the differences. So I think the perception is fairly accurate, but it's obviously not true of everyone. Maybe men have to be more intentional about looking more deeply and looking within than women do, but we're all capable of it. So it's not genetically impossible for us. It's just overriding our programming essentially.
Okay, fantastic. Well, yeah, and I think to whoever the person was who was asking that, there's a possible explanation about what personal growth might be, and you don't have to be a woman to go on this workshop, do you, Simone? Third country kids or third culture kids, and that's all part of the identity part that is the morning or the first part of the morning. Then there's a coffee break to reflect and digest on that. And then the big question in the workshop, where am I going? The integral adult development theories that come into this. Could you, without giving too much away, because obviously you want people to go on the workshop, but what would that be about?
Okay, the second part is more like, okay, we as grown-ups, we know we change and we become wiser, some of us, but there seems to be a path, there seems to be stages of development. So I based that part of the workshop on the integral adult development theories, which is an umbrella of theories that I came across a couple of years ago, and I'm still fascinated. So I'm going to share the little bit that I know about that has helped me in the process of growing up, in the sense that there are stages. I mean, what are these stages? I mean, most people follow those stages naturally. You don't have to talk about it, but there was some scientists actually doing assessments on how people how can I say, how people use their language, and by choosing the words, you kind of know what stages they are. So this is a fascinating theory, very deep, but I'm just going to bring up the ideas of the R stage. There are 3 and 4 stages. And I remember when I was reading about that, I was probably in a lower stage myself. So I was like, oh my God, what are they talking about? But just to see the guidelines of what people become in each of the stage. And it doesn't mean that we don't go back. Now, in stress mode, we always go back in this stage development. But anyway, I just thought that this very, very deep but very simple theory could help us in the process of self-discover. And as James says, let's look inside to see what's happening. And by looking at these states, I might identify, so this is why I have left my country. Oh, this is why I was so tired of my work and I need to recreate my career. I need to start from zero. So people go through those phases in a less chaotic way than we imagine. So those theories kind of help us.
A bit of a framework. No, I understand. So a bit of a framework to understand what you're going through. And now you make a very interesting point there about there's a kind of regression that goes on when you're under stress. So when we're looking at it coldly this morning, I mean, not coldly in a bad way, but like, calmly, rationally, we're looking at the ideas of what you're talking about, and we can appreciate them. Wherever you go, there you are. And there might be personal growth in expatriation. But if you're sat in your new place and you're already missing home, and you've had a bad experience, of some kind or other, it's very interesting that you should say that you would be set back. So that's where the framework is important, isn't it? To see, okay, I can understand what's happened to me from a transcendent point of view, or with the help professionals like yourself, James, and yourself, Simone. So that's very interesting, Simone. Also, what I want to ask you about the workshop is it going to be theoretical, but with an appreciation of of the theories that you're putting forward, or are people invited to get involved and actually do some of that hard work? Will hankies tissues be available for any upsets? Is what I'm asking.
That's a great question. It really depends on the number. I'm considering splitting the group if the number gets bigger, because it is a workshop, not a speech. And I have planned some moments of exercise where people are going to be invited to share some thoughts with someone that is there, just to make it a little bit more natural. And yes, the idea is to create a safe, non-judgmental space where people can share. Of course, the depth of sharing it varies, but since this is the first time I do it in Portugal, I'm gonna experiment with the reaction of people and so on. But for sure, that's a place that okay, of course, if you don't wanna say anything, that's fine too. But there might be someone sharing some things that you can relate to, and that's the idea, to create a safe space for us all to be more aware of what's happening to us. Because I can bring up a nice sentence that I usually use, and you guys were talking about suffering before. So I think suffering plus reflection becomes progression. So if there's no reflection, if we just suffer, we are on the automatic mood, and we keep on going, but there's no moments of stopping, staying in the present, reflecting what's happened to your life. There's not really growth that is aware. No, it's a reflection of awareness, and that you have the opportunity to take the responsibility in the process. So I think the workshop is an opportunity to sit and talk. So you guys are very welcome.
Well, that's really kind, and I think some people will be thinking, yeah, that's great. I don't want to go and see a speech. I want some help, and I want to talk to other people in a similar situation. So I'm sure that will be available to them. We've got some lovely feedback as we conclude the show. Thank you for being here, Simone. Thank you for being here, James. And what have we got here? A person can make migration the way they want, but it takes motivation to follow through. Okay, we did that one, but yeah, I think that makes even more sense now, having spoken to Simone. And look at this. And to complain they don't have Mexican food here. I don't know if you've got a section on that. Maybe that's a bit too
Not yet.
Okay. And what else have we got here? Joao F. Glad to see Connie this morning. Often think about you and Hank. Hope you're managing to build your happiness in this country step by step. I think they are. And they are a resource to others, as well as having their own journey here. We were on. Thank you and acknowledge you, Connie and Hank, for the work you do for the community. I've seen more and more fast food places in the last 5 years than when we arrived 18 years ago, when the children were slim. Not good to need these foreign influences. It's all about balance, Rugby Colin. Good morning to you. And sorry we didn't get our quiz team place. We are having a Good Morning Portugal quiz team, I believe. Thank you to Rugby Colin, but we're on a waiting list. Do they know who we are? Honestly, Mrs. M liked the idea that we could eat our way into the country. I love your eat yourself to a better migration approach. That's another workshop. Sounds interesting. Some people might want to do that with you, Frank. Some of the best food in the US exists because migrants kept their food traditions while integrating into local culture. If you crave Mexican, grow the ingredients or find a local source. It can be done, can't it? In Lagos, Jess was there. Very beautiful environment, and the night scene is like a big Mardi Gras party. Yes, like some of the rest of the Algarve on a Saturday night. I try to make peace with my own expectations nowadays. I'm happier for it and let others act the way they want. Well, that sounds like the progression you were talking about, Simone, there. Andy, thank you for that picture. We'll end with that because I think it is the perfect picture of integration, the very thing that we're talking about here, or part of it anyway. What's this? Beautiful, says Pete. The mist rolling over the mountains, autumn hues of orange and red, and of course, mushrooms popping up all over the land. You'll both have to pop up. They even have alpha-related activities. That's not alpha males, I don't think, or even though that might be true as well. I think that's Alpha the dog. When I visited to Figueira da Foz, Darren says, who's coming here for the olives, I think I went to the quiet part. That's possible. Figueira da Foz beach is massive. And be happy, says Paul. You only live once. Time is precious. Unless you're a Buddhist, Paul, of course, but let's not get into that right now. James, I am looking forward to reaching your level of maturity. How about that? So I can, with Pete, it's going to start well, but it's going to go somewhere else, isn't it? So I can do a slow person shuffle in front of people who look like they're in a rush, maybe hitting them with a walking stick. Let me just make this clear. James does not do that in Eddie, Sarah, everybody. And when I was in the Peace Corps, Jim says, in India, I held such disdain for the Americans, in inverted commas, bunniers, who had access to the embassy, tight expat communities. We in the Peace Corps were supposed to be grassroots, live with people, live off the local economy. What I realize now is that both are okay. Yeah, that's right. And this is not to judge anyone who's not doing it in the right kind of way. It's just to give other access, isn't it, to other possibilities this morning. When I stayed in the embassy complex, says Pete, in Kathmandu, we met people that hadn't even left the compound in 3 years. Wow. Stunning that people have so little appetite for culture gorging. Why do people travel and then not leave the hotel? Well, that's their business. But as I said, other options are available. Let's not give anyone a hard time this morning. They're doing their best, I'm sure. We need community and familiarity to feel safe and connected. We get to live in both worlds, not feel guilty about enjoying fellow expats, and still do everything we can to meet, join, and belong here. Yes, balance. Well said, Jim. Thank you for that. Darren J. Yo, it's Darren Live. What? He's appearing as two people. That's another way of it migrating, of course, isn't it? With unleash both your personalities on the new culture. We've got the answer. Hold on, everybody. We've got the answer. And it is to keep young and be with young people and think like they do. Age is what you are, not a number, even when you are getting closer to 80. And the value of our man cave. We had dinner last night with Antonio F. and family and Nuna Mensch, with Brits and Americans, among others. The keyword integration. I noticed we weren't invited to that, James. But anyway, look at them there. That is a picture of integration, is it not? And that looks like that place was buzzing. That sounds fantastic. And what a great model that is for integration there. Nice one, Andy. That's fantastic. Safe, non-judgmental space is wonderful, and incorporating practices that can be tried at home also helps. Isn't this wonderful? Thank you. Victoria's here as well. Stop it. We've just had the MRI scan. It's not time yet to decorate your Christmas tree. Honestly, Victoria, what are you like? Andy, we've already had the tree here for a few weeks. I guess that's one way again of integrating, isn't it? Come round and see how we do Christmas, perhaps. But it's true. It's not even December yet. Vicky, stop it. Right, so in the last minute or so, can I give you both maybe 30 seconds each to sum up? Because it's been a fantastic conversation as it is on a Monday about mindful migration. This is the workshop that's coming up. Perhaps we'll go to you, James, and we'll give Simone the last word, please.
Sure. I've just been reminded again the huge importance of safety, feeling safe emotionally, physically, in all ways. It's a huge part of my practice. If people don't feel safe to open up, they're not going to. So that, to me, is sort of the beginning of any work, whether it's a workshop or therapy, is making sure that people understand they will not be judged, they will not be abused in any sort of violent way with words, physically, or in any way, that they will be accepted and celebrated for who they are. And it may take a little bit of experiencing that to trust it, but safety really is the key to being able to do the deep work and to be honest and transparent and vulnerable.
Well said, sir. Thank you very much there. Nice point of order. Simone, thank you for joining us this morning. Last word to you. Good luck with your workshop. What would you like to leave people with this morning?
So first, thank you again for having me on, and James said it all, as always, seems like it. Being safe, to be who you are and to create your own path. And anyone's life is special and is unique. So you should look inside, and you will find great treasures.
Oh, that's beautiful. Look inside and you'll find great treasures. What a fantastic note to end on today. Thank you, Simone. Thank you, James. And thank you, everybody, for tuning in. We'll see you again tomorrow. Thank you very much, and bye for now. Ciao, ciao.
Obrigado. Ciao, ciao.
Ciao, ciao. Bye for now.
In Portugal, there's a YouTube show full of fun facts you need to know. tomorrow rings a bell and the members show to the GMP morning show. Featured guests will come and they will blow your mind. The audience will do so in kind. The little vanity mixed with some insanity on the morning show with GMP.